and by the way, now I want you to present that in a look. I mean, it's very difficult to do, and it takes great talent.
He doesn't fire people lightly. He doesn't yell. Zemeckis watches, quietly. But when it's not working, he doesn't explain. He replaces.
And they either have it or they don't, and there's nothing that a filmmaker can do to impose that on the movie.
For over 4 decades, Robert Zemeckis redefined what blockbuster filmmaking could be. Technical wizardry, emotional velocity, characters that defy gravity but stay grounded. But all that precision, it depends on something brutally simple. Collaboration that works, or gets cut. He's not driven by ego, he's driven by rhythm. And if you're offbeat, you're out. Back to the Future. Forrest Gump. Cast Away. Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Zemeckis doesn't just tell stories, he engineers them. Every frame, every line, every expression has to serve the machine. And when an actor slows that machine down, he notices. When he loses trust, he doesn't debate it. He deletes the scene, the footage. Sometimes the actor.
You have to balance it, and it's a question of balance.
He's worked with megastars, icons, Oscar winners. But only a few stayed in his frame. And a few, well, they got replaced mid-shoot, or vanished for good. Here are the 6 actors Zemeckis shut out, cut loose, or never called back, and why he never regretted it. Number 1. Eric Stoltz. There's getting fired from a movie, and then there's being erased from a legacy. In the world of Back to the Future, Eric Stoltz is the ghost in the DeLorean, the actor who was supposed to be Marty McFly, the one Robert Zemeckis chose, then quietly replaced. But this wasn't a bad audition story or a scheduling issue. This was personal. It was creative. And it left scars. Zemeckis believed in Stoltz, at first. He saw intensity, seriousness, range. But what he didn't see was Marty, the charm, the comic timing, the electricity. Michael J. Fox had it. Stoltz, despite his skill, didn't. Zemeckis once said, "Eric is a wonderful actor. He was just not funny." But this wasn't a one-day realization. Stoltz shot for over a month, whole scenes, dozens of takes. He was in the film until he wasn't, and behind the scenes things were breaking. Crew members said Stoltz insisted on being called Marty, even off set. He avoided jokes, didn't break character. Some called it method acting, others just called it exhausting. Even Thomas F. Wilson, who played Biff, said he had to physically push Stoltz in takes because Stoltz refused to pretend. Zemeckis kept filming. He didn't yell, didn't storm off, he just watched and waited until he couldn't wait anymore.
To be everywhere.
I think it should be 2 places. I think it should be I think it should be.
In early January 1985, Zemeckis made the call. He shut down the set, pulled the plug, and told the studio he needed to start over with someone else. Just like that, Eric Stoltz was gone, and Michael J. Fox stepped in. But here's the thing, Zemeckis has barely spoken about it since. Not in detail, not with bitterness, just the occasional sigh, the rare quote, and a quiet regret. Not for what happened, but for how long it took to admit it wasn't working. Because for Robert Zemeckis, directing isn't about loyalty. It's about tone. It's about energy. And Stoltz, for all his talent, walked into the wrong film at the wrong time, with the wrong frequency. This wasn't a feud, it was a cinematic exorcism, and it set the tone for everything Zemeckis would do after. He'll give you the shot, but if you don't fit the frame, you're out. Number 2. Crispin Glover. Some actors challenged the role. Crispin Glover challenged the movie. When Robert Zemeckis cast him as George McFly in Back to the Future, he wasn't looking for easy. He was looking for something a little left of center, a little strange, and Glover delivered until he didn't. On screen he was brilliant. Off screen he was a storm of questions, about character motivation, about story logic, about why Marty had to fix things with money. Glover didn't just play George, he analyzed him, argued about him, obsessed over him. Zemeckis once said, Crispin's performance was great, but the process of getting it was difficult. The tension came to a head after filming. Glover pushed back hard against the ending. He felt it was too materialistic, that it betrayed the characters. Zemeckis disagreed, quietly, firmly. But once the cameras stopped rolling, something else did too. the trust. When Back to the Future Part 2 went into production, Glover was gone. Not recast, replaced, a lookalike actor, prosthetics, archive footage. It was the cinematic version of ghosting.
Pumpkin.
How did you do that? How did you do that?
Oh, out on the golf course.
Glover sued, Universal settled, but the fallout lingered, not just legally, but emotionally. Zemeckis never cast him again, never spoke about it in detail, but the choice was permanent. To Zemeckis, filmmaking isn't a democracy, it's a tightrope. You either walk the line or you shake the wire. Glover wanted a conversation. Zemeckis wanted alignment, and when that didn't happen, the director didn't raise his voice. He just raised the stakes and cut the cord. George McFly was unforgettable, but Crispin Glover became a warning. With Zemeckis, you don't just play the role, you protect the tone, you match the rhythm, and if your energy breaks the frame, he'll find someone else to hold it steady, because in his world, resistance isn't brave, it's expendable. Number 3. Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt was never reckless on screen, but off-screen, he took chances, especially with directors. When Robert Zemeckis cast Pitt in Allied opposite Marion Cotillard, the expectations were high. This wasn't just another war romance, it was a slow-burn espionage thriller, a classic Zemeckis puzzle, emotion, precision, and unspoken weight. Pitt fit the profile, on paper.
Did you send it?
But the production didn't unfold quietly. Rumors swirled. Pitt was distracted, late to set, dealing with a very public divorce from Angelina Jolie. The energy shifted, the balance tipped, and Zemeckis, who thrives on control, found himself with an actor in free fall. Zemeckis never said it outright, but insiders did. The chemistry between Pitt and Cotillard? Cold. The process? Disjointed. Zemeckis shot the film like he always does, with care, discipline, and frames that breathe. But Pitt was somewhere else. He delivered the lines, hit the marks, but the presence wasn't there. Not the way Zemeckis needed it, not the way he defines performance. "I look for what the camera doesn't have to find," Zemeckis once said. With Pitt, he had to search, dig, adjust the lens instead of just watching it come alive. And for a director like Zemeckis, that wasn't just inconvenient, it was exhausting. The reviews for Allied were mixed. The box office? Disappointing. And the collaboration? Never repeated. Pitt never appeared in another Zemeckis film. No drama, no headlines, just a quiet parting of roads. For Pitt, it was just another project. For Zemeckis, it was a reminder that even the most bankable face can't fake alignment. That star power doesn't equal story gravity, because Zemeckis doesn't direct fame, he directs weight, and Brad Pitt, at least during Allied, couldn't hold it. Number 4. Meryl Streep. She's the high priestess of acting, a legend, a masterclass in every frame. But for Robert Zemeckis, even Meryl Streep came with shadows. When they teamed up for Death Becomes Her in 1992, it wasn't just a bold casting choice, it was a risk. Zemeckis was crafting a dark comedy laced with visual effects that were, at the time, revolutionary. He needed his actors to trust green screens, invisible platforms, and scripts that walked a tonal tightrope. And Meryl, she didn't trust the tech. Behind the scenes, Streep was open about her discomfort. She reportedly called the experience overwhelming and said the constant interaction with early CGI made her feel like a robot. The character, Madeline Ashton, was over the top, campy, digitally twisted. It wasn't her zone. Zemeckis pushed forward, she pulled back. She once remarked, "It's the first time I've felt like my performance didn't matter." For a director like Zemeckis, who builds emotion through structure, this was friction. He wasn't directing a live play, he was building a moving painting, and the brushstrokes didn't leave room for doubt. The shoot was tough. Streep felt boxed in. The digital setups, the motion control cameras, it all drained the spontaneity. She was used to exploring characters with breath and improvisation. Zemeckis was capturing images that had to match invisible elements that weren't even rendered yet. When the film was released, it became a cult classic. But Streep never returned to the world of Zemeckis. She said she admired his technical genius, but never pursued another collaboration. No public falling out, no tabloid feud, just silence. And in Hollywood, silence can say more than headlines. Zemeckis once said that filmmaking is choreography with light, but for Streep, it felt like dancing without music, and for both of them, once was enough. Number 5. Bruce Willis. Sometimes, what happens on screen is just a polished illusion. The real tension? It's happening between takes. Bruce Willis and Robert Zemeckis created something unforgettable with Death Becomes Her. Willis played Ernest Menville, a pathetic, drunken surgeon tangled in a triangle of immortality and vanity. It was one of his rare comedic performances, but behind the scenes, there was nothing funny about it. Zemeckis wanted subtlety. Willis brought swagger.
Police, Fallon, the police!
Oh, what are they gonna do? Put me in the gas chamber? Big deal.
What about life in prison? You know what that means to a person?
According to crew reports, Zemeckis clashed with Willis's tone from day one. Bruce had just come off Die Hard 2. His screen presence was massive. But Ernest wasn't supposed to be powerful. He was weak, lost. A man crumbling under two undead women who used him as a pawn. Zemeckis needed restraint. But Willis kept slipping into action hero posture. Zemeckis reportedly had to give dozens of takes for a single reaction shot, dialing Willis back millimeter by millimeter. He wanted fragility. Bruce defaulted to cool. A former set tech recalled, Zemeckis was patient, but you could feel it, like he was directing a pit bull to act like a chihuahua. Even the physical comedy became a sticking point. Zemeckis was choreographing sequences with timing down to the frame, when Ernest gets thrown downstairs, when he recoils from Meryl's twisted neck, but Willis allegedly resisted rehearsals and didn't love repeating scenes for FX plates. The friction never exploded, but it lingered. Willis delivered a performance unlike any other in his career, awkward, unhinged, neurotic, and it worked. The film became iconic, but Zemeckis never called him again. No sequel, no reunion, just a single line in the film's legacy. Zemeckis has often talked about rhythm, how every beat matters. But with Willis, he had to fight for every beat, every pause, every stumble. And when you're the kind of director who builds scenes with a scalpel, you don't want to spend your time taming a hammer. They made something memorable, but not something repeatable. Number 6. Bob Hoskins. You can't talk about Zemeckis without talking about Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And you can't talk about Roger Rabbit without Bob Hoskins unless you ask Zemeckis directly. Hoskins was perfect on screen, tough, grounded, believable. A noir detective in a cartoon world, selling every single hallucination like it was real. But off-screen, the magic cost more than anyone expected.
Get easy! Please, Eddie! Don't tell me you're making a big mistake! Whoa.
During filming, Zemeckis pushed Hoskins into something no actor had ever done before. Full dramatic scenes with nothing. No co-star, no puppets, no eye lines, just green screens, tracking dots, and Zemeckis' voice reading cartoon lines from behind the camera. Hoskins pulled it off, but it fractured him. Years later, he admitted in interviews that he started seeing Roger Rabbit in real life, at home, in his dreams. His young daughter reportedly begged him to stop doing the voice. I had hallucinations. I would talk to the rabbit in my head, Hoskins confessed. Zemeckis didn't see it as cruelty. He saw it as the future. But to Hoskins, it was psychological war. Zemeckis asked for hundreds of takes. He asked Hoskins to choreograph reactions to cartoons that hadn't even been drawn yet. Sometimes entire days were shot for gags that got trimmed down to seconds. He was building history, but he was burning out his lead. Hoskins never returned for a sequel, not because it flopped, it didn't, but because he didn't want to be in that place again. Years later, he said he'd never do another movie like that again. Zemeckis never asked him to. There was no fight, no scandal, just silent exhaustion. Zemeckis admired the performance. Hoskins survived it. And that was enough for both of them to move on. In Zemeckis' world, reality bends. But some actors need a real room, a real partner, and a world they can actually feel. Hoskins gave him brilliance, but at a cost neither of them wanted to pay twice. He doesn't scream, he doesn't gossip. Robert Zemeckis directs the way he edits. Precisely. If you don't fit, you're cut. Across 5 decades, he's worked with legends, icons, chaos agents, and scene stealers. but only a few ever came back, and even fewer made it past the first film. Because Zemeckis doesn't believe in chemistry, he believes in control. So, who surprised you the most, or who didn't make the list, but probably should have? Drop it in the comments. And if you want more real stories from behind the scenes, like, subscribe, and join the channel. We'll be watching from the director's chair. See you in the next one.